A little Bon Jovi, Magic in the Morning, 8:36, and was it Bon Jovi and Rat? First concert I ever saw in my life. That'll take you back to 1985.
And that tells us all how old you are.
If the world don't know, man, I grew up here. Okay?
Yeah.
Well, like you too. Anyways, Mike Barrett with us. It's called Good Policies, and it is a segment that we do Tuesday mornings at this time. The insurance world is hard to understand if you're not working in it, and Mike helps us understand that.
Yeah, it can be tough when you're working in it, too. So,
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Well, it's like everything out there. It's like when I was in the automotive industry, we had to keep up on changing technologies, procedures, and stuff like that. And things change. Very fluid in the insurance industry.
Very much so. Very much so. We just had a big convention for the Vermont Insurance Agents Association at the tail end of last week. And, it's always nice to have those because we get to network with a bunch of insurance agents across the state of Vermont, as well as a bunch of carriers across the state of Vermont. But also get to learn new things and understand some of the intricacies of our industry that we may not always have our eyes on. So it was pretty cool to be a part of that.
Now, being not in the insurance industry, just simply hanging out with you and having chats every week, right?
Yeah.
I've learned a bit, but there are a ton of things that people out there may have some misconceptions on as far as insurance coverage and policies go.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Let's hit you with one. I'm going to ask you a question. You answer, and we'll see how you do, okay?
I'm not ready for a test, but sure.
All right. If you have a trailer that you pull with your vehicle, now it could be a utility trailer for hauling your lawnmower or anything for that matter, or it can be a camper trailer or a fifth wheel, all right? Should that unit have an ID card?
Okay, now, first off, it's really odd that you would bring in the trailer aspect because I followed a horse trailer in this morning.
Okay.
And the only lights that worked on it were the brake lights.
Uh-huh. No
Okay.
directionals, no nothing, yeah.
I saw two trailers on the way in this morning. How in the world did you know that? I would say that you have to have an ID card for it.
And that's the misconception. You would believe that, if you have a unit that you're insuring, that you would need an ID card. Now, when you add a trailer to your auto policy, you're adding it for physical damage, and that's it. You're not adding it for liability because the liability extends from the vehicle that is towing the trailer. So now let's go to what an ID card is. An ID card is showing that you are compliant with the requirement to maintain liability insurance in Vermont. So you do not need an ID card for your trailer. Now, that's not to say that you will never get one. Some companies' systems are not necessarily advanced enough, so they kind of automatically spit them out maybe at the first policy term. But you really don't need an ID card for your trailer because you'll never need to prove compulsory compliance for a trailer.
Now, does that fall true, or does that hold true for a fifth wheel, or what some folks would call a gooseneck camper or a gooseneck trailer?
Correct, because it's being towed. So if it's being towed by a vehicle, then you don't need to prove liability. So then that's the same if you have it on your auto policy, or if you've gone to a policy we call a monoline policy, meaning it specifically exists for one thing and one thing only, and that is to insure a camper or a trailer. You do not need an ID card for that because the liability will extend from the tow vehicle.
Well, and I too remember my days as an automotive technician or mechanic is what most folks call us. I mean, those trailers have to be inspected anyways.
Correct.
So
they still are subject to all the DMV requirements, but you'll find the trailers have a little less requirement overall. So you do not need an ID card. But that being said, there are some people who really want one.
All right.
So we will provide that if they do.
Ready for question number 2.
Having a water source like a pond or a river or a stream near your house will help you with your homeowner's insurance.
Okay, now that's kind of a tricky one because I'm thinking about where I live, where the east branch of the Passumpsic River begins.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I don't know anywhere down the road that there's a fire hydrant, so I am thinking possibly yes.
You were on the right track, and then all of a sudden you pumped the brakes and took the wrong turn.
Okay.
When you said hydrant, I had such a glimmer of hope here. So if you have a water source, that's fantastic, right? Because it's got to be a water source that the fire department can get in and draft on. But what insurance companies, and specifically what the insurance services offices are looking for fire rating for a community, is a fire hydrant. Now, that to be said, you could drive on Route 2 in East St. Johnsbury along the Moose River and see a hydrant there that's connected and got the water supply for the Moose River. You can drive around towns like Waterford, who have gotten grant money, and there are water sources in Waterford that have allowed the town to put hydrants in. So in order for it to really be of any help, and it's not always going to be a tremendous help, but for it to be any assistance on savings or on your homeowner policy, it needs to be hydrants, because drafting takes time, right? So if you're drafting the water on, there's no water pressure, there's a process there. So having a hydrant is going to be the key there.
Well, that, and you don't have to mess with ice in the winters. So that's what I was thinking about as we were doing it. And as you talk about some towns getting grant money for roadside hydrants, I do know of one located just before Sanderson's Wooden Bowls up here.
Yes.
That has been added. I think they did it just back when they paved a couple of years back.
Yeah, and that's one of those processes where they can identify a water source that will work, and they can do what they call a dry hydrant. So,
all right. Do you want to hit me with 3?
Let's see. What is the other one? You can have any dog you want with any company you want.
No, I remember this as a no. Okay. Well, I mean, you can have the dog, but you can't insure it.
Beautiful. You're going right to where I teed you up because I kind of misspoke, and man, you just hit the home run. So there are some options here, and I like your point, Jeff. So there are some insurance companies that have no dog lists, all right? And those companies exist. And if we get a call and we don't have a company that will accept your dog, I will refer you to a company that will, because I'm a dog lover. So I am not going to tell you to get rid of your family member because of the breed, okay? But there are companies out there that statistically there are certain breeds that are high probability of claim, right? But truth be told, any dog can cause injury. And we're not talking just a bite. We're talking about trip and fall. We're talking about a lot of things. You are liable on your homeowner or renter's insurance policy for your animals. So if your animal causes bodily injury or property damage to somebody or something, you can be held liable, which is why companies with their checkbook in hand go, we're sorry, that dog has just really bad numbers. We're not comfortable insuring it. We won't. And at that point, you have to find another company. So, but there are companies out there as well that will write you no matter what dog you have and do exactly what you said. Put an exclusion on that dog. Does that mean you're not liable for anything that dog does? No, you are. You're signing an exclusion stating, look, if something happens, it's out of my bank account. It's not out of the insurance coffers.
Well, we'll take it back to home again with my life as being a car guy.
Sure.
It's just like somebody out there having a 1932 hot rod or rat rod or even, say, a 56 Impala convertible. There are companies that will, and there are companies that will not insure it as a classic.
Yeah, exactly. So when it comes to classic or antiques, a lot of companies want to see an antique plate on it, so it needs to be registered as such. But there are some companies out there with broader acceptability. We represent companies like J.C. Taylor and Haggerty, who actually have a great diverse option. Haggerty, where J.C. Taylor has restrictions that may not work, Haggerty can fill that buffer and vice versa. So it's really good. But there's plenty of options, including maybe even putting it on your existing auto policy. But how often are you driving these beautiful cars? Not often. They're garaged in the winter. They don't see road salt. They don't see rainfall. So don't pay too much and find a company that specifically writes those. You'll be shocked at how much you're paying compared to what you'd be paying otherwise.
I like that you mentioned Haggerty because they've got a bunch of great video series up on YouTube.
Yes, they do. They're great. I really enjoy working with them.
All right, so you heard Jeff fail 2 out of 3 in the morning insurance test.
Hey,
now, folks,
that's a victory, sir.
Well,
insurance is not.
I got 1.
You have a life to live. You're not here to remember everything we talk about. So I chalk that up as a victory.
People stop me in the store and say, hey, I got to remember this stuff, all right? So if folks want to get in touch with you with any questions.
Yeah, you can give us a call, 748-5224. We're located right on Portland Street in St. Johnsbury. Dr. Hoppy and his wife have both stopped in and given their stamp of approval of our office, which is awesome. I love them. You can also find us on our website, thebarrettagency.com, Google, Facebook, and YouTube. Just look for Barrett Insurance Agency.
Rob and Chris are wonderful people.
Yes, they are.
Mike, thank you very much. We'll go down and I'll say see you later to Charlie, and we'll do it again next week.
Sounds like a plan.
Magic in the Morning rolls on with Taylor Swift.